Hey, my name is Sarah and welcome back to another episode of Talking Fast. This is the first episode of 2025. It is literally January 1st that this is dropping.
New year, new us, Sarah.
So we're coming from the past. This is still 2024 that we're in. So we're going to wrap that up. But it feels like a good omen for the podcast that January 1st is on a Wednesday this year. Do you not agree?
100%. We're going to maximize our episode drops this year. It feels like a full-on refresh.
We could do a full 52 then. We will.
Yes, we could. You know what? We might. We've done some good episodes this year, I think.
We could. I agree, which is crazy. And we're going to reflect on everything. Yeah. And we're heading into year 3. Which is
How crazy is that?
That's nuts.
I remember I was on a beach in Mexico when we dropped the first episode.
Yeah, that's so crazy to think about. So what we did last year, we're gonna do a full reflection of some of our favorite things, and then we're gonna go into our goals. I brought up our goals that we had set in the episode last year. We're gonna talk about if we hit them or not, and then we're gonna talk about our goals for 2025, not just this podcast, but for everything else. Are you ready?
I like it. I'm ready, Sarah.
Full year recap. Jacob, what was your favorite thing that you ate or drank this year?
Okay, this is almost like a backwards answer because my answer is drinking less alcohol, actually.
No, that's good.
It wasn't necessarily...
It's funny because that was one of my goals last year. I did drink less alcohol, but...
I remember at the beginning of the year, you were just like, one... Well, we'll talk about it later, probably.
Maybe. I don't know. One sober week a year, but anyways.
But it was kind of unintentional. Obviously, a big goal for me this year was running the marathon, and a couple of other goals just kind of took a good amount of my time. And it was things like you got to wake up for building the cottage, for example. You got to wake up the next morning on a weekend and go and check out tile or go and check out appliances, or you have to wake up and you got to, you have a big training run or you need to maximize your recovery. So as a result, I think of doing other things, I had other bigger goals. The amount of alcohol that I was drinking just kind of subsided a little bit. And I think that overall was a positive. That was a sneaky, we're at the year end. I was looking at this list of what are these top things? What are the best thing I drank? What are the best thing I eat? I was you know what? Actually, it was the lack of it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it's not to say that I completely gave it up.
But it's the difference of okay, maybe you're not cracking a bottle of wine on a Friday night just because you kind of feel like that's what you do. Because Saturday morning you have to run 27 kilometers.
Exactly. Yeah. And it gave a little bit of perspective that those sacrifices, giving up that bottle of wine or giving up maybe a cocktail with dinner when you maybe try the non-alcoholic beer, that there are a bunch of good options now, or you just go with a different mocktail or something, is well worth it. So that was mine for the year. What about you? What was your top eating or drinking option?
My favorite thing was I got to experience eating khao soi in Chiang Mai, the mother place of my favorite meal.
Yeah, that's a good one.
As soon as we got to Chiang Mai, I quite literally, we dropped our bags at the hostel. We went for a walk and we went into this random hole in the wall place. And we had a $2 khao soi. That was probably the best khao soi I've ever had in my life. I will say pie in Toronto tastes the same. Haley and I were eating it and I was we were both talking about how this tastes like pie, meaning that
they nailed it.
That they nail it. I just had this moment. There's a video of me eating it and you can just see me take a breath, being this was the moment I dreamed of coming to Thailand for. I was I could go home right now, to be honest, because I was that's what I wanted. I ate khao soi every single day while I was there, and it was so good. So that was my best meal.
That's a good one. That actually tag on for me. Boston cream in Boston.
Your dream as a
You're
donut
right.
guy.
Okay, that's such a good one. Sarah, what about something you watched or read? What was your top for the year?
So I had to look back at this. Watched there was some incredible movies that came out this year, specifically Dune Part 2 was one of my favorite movies that I watched this year. I just as a movie theater experience, it was incredible. I mean, Wicked, I can already tell is going to become a Mamma Mia, where I'll watch it and go back to as a comfort film. There's been a lot of good watches, no real shows or anything that I became addicted to. I also watched Lord of the Rings for the first time. There was some really big ones, but the thing that stood out was more so what I read. So there was 2 books that I became obsessed with. And I was really in a lot of reading slumps this year. So the fact that these books, they were both in January, I read them. But the first one was Fourth Wing and Iron Flame fantasy books. I read them on the 24-hour reading challenge with Tara. And those, the third one's coming out. And I'm so excited. And it just was a page turner. But the number one book I read or thing I watched that's just I've gone back to is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I didn't know how else to describe it. I think I talked about it on this podcast as when you read a book that's a book you love so much, a lot of Emily Henry's books, I read them and I'm I don't know if I'm ever going to have another favorite book again. You love it so much. That's how I felt reading this. I was literally I'm never going to have another favorite book again because I love this so much. And yeah, I just loved that I started my year off with like a book that just had that much impact on me. It's one that I would love to like make into a film one day. I think it's so magical.
Yeah, is it that kind of potential?
For sure. And I haven't had a book make me feel that way in a long time. And it's by far my favorite. I already read it twice this year. I'm probably gonna read it one more time while I'm on vacation over the holidays. So yeah, The 7-Year Slip. How about you?
Ooh, that's a good one. For me, it was what I watched. And I was reading, or I was kind of trying to remember, what did I watch this year? What movie wise, series wise, I feel like I watched a decent amount, but one thing that like popped back that I was like, actually this I think is my favorite series, and maybe thing that I consumed media wise, was Baby Reindeer.
Oh, interesting.
It was like a very uncomfortable watch. I think we even talked about it on this podcast maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm like, okay, what was the one thing that kind of hooked me? And that one, as uncomfortable as it was, I think it was one of the first times I actually went through and like close to binge watched something that it was just, let's get the next episode going. The next episode.
It feels like it has the same impact that The Queen's Gambit did when it first came out.
Yeah. So that was mine. I liked it.
Love it. What was your favorite listen? This is hard for you. What's the favorite thing you listened to? Like favorite album, music thing?
Spotify Wrapped came out a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Everyone waits for it all year long, myself included. I had 64,000 minutes of listening time,
running
which
adds
is a lot.
Running adds so much though.
100%. Yeah. And then 14,000 minutes of podcasts. So,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Ours did not crack Jacob's top 5, unfortunately. It's a little rude, but that's fine.
Well, imagine if it was half my own voice. That was like...
It'd be hilarious.
I have to give it to Role Model. Role Model, Saint Laurent
Coming
Cowboy.
to Butt Stage.
I know. I was just going to say that's what was one of those things.
Abrams.
I was so psyched because he's playing Toronto, his own show at History. I think it's in March of this coming year. And I'm like, okay... I know he's a newer artist. He's got a few albums, but like new, it's tough to say it's a bucket list show. But for me, I'm like, that's the show that I'm most excited for next year, I think.
I love that.
But then when I saw, Gracie Abrams is coming in at the end of July and he's opening for Gracie Abrams. I was like, I think I'll see Role Model twice.
I love that.
He had my favorite album of the year, Kansas Anymore. He was one of my top artists on Spotify. When I go through my like whole list of my top 50 songs or whatever it was, it's like every 5th song is one of his. He was standout and like really funny on TikTok as well.
Love that.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, to no one's surprise, it was the Torture Poets Department and the anthology. The reason, though, so I had a feeling it was a double album when it dropped. I stayed up until like 3 a.m. I was by myself at home and I'd like lit candles. It kind of looked like a little culty, but I'd lit candles. I was all ready to listen to it. And what I always do with Taylor Swift albums is I like have the lyrics up because the lyrics get dropped like as the album gets dropped. And I look at the lyrics and I read the lyrics as I'm listening to the song for the first time. And this album just like really came at a perfect time for the part of my life I was in. Like it's got like so many songs about like growing up and like moving on and all of these things and just like a transitional part of my life I was in. So it also felt like such a deep cut. Like it felt like an album that was very like reputation code in the sense of it was very misunderstood when it first came out and people were like, you just come off Midnights, which is like obviously it's one album of the year. So it was like a very like synthy poppy like mainstream album arguably. And then you have this, which was just like her putting like what I love most about Taylor Swift, like her heart on her sleeve and just like writing exactly how she feels and then putting it out there. And even though it was a little chaotic and like maybe as a full album doesn't make a lot of sense to people, I loved it. And for quite literally all 5 songs that were the top 5 songs this year for me were from
all
that
5?
Album. All 5.
Damn.
Yeah.
At least you're consistent.
Actually, it was 8 because like when you look at the top 50, it's like the top 8. All I did was listen to that album for like all of this year. Essentially, it came out in April.
How many artists did you listen to this year? I was so annoyed that it didn't add it to the main page that people could share for Spotify.
I don't remember. Not 1,000. Does that make sense? How many did you listen to? I can't remember what it said.
I was 3,000.
I think I was 1,000. 1,200, 1,500, something along those lines.
Yeah.
I also think there was a big drop off because I didn't run as much this year, so that was a huge drop off in like like listening to different artists for sure.
100%.
But also, our boy Virginia to Vegas made it on my top 5 artists.
I noticed that. Yeah.
That's because early in the year it was right after Derek was on the podcast. All I listened to was Better Man and Selfish for working out. Like I just listened to them. Anyways, but
that's a good one.
The Torture Poets Department and the anthology specifically. My most listened to song of the year was Down Bad. So
Sarah, what was one of the top places you visited this year?
I got to go to a lot of cool places, but I think the top was Bali because
even accident noted.
Yeah. Look, I don't accept. Okay, I don't consider my Bali trip the accident. The accident is separate. Like, it was the last day. So in my brain, the accident just replaced Singapore because I never got to go. Yeah. But I had done everything else I wanted to do in Bali up until then. So I really disassociate the two. It doesn't feel like that was in Bali. It felt like I was in purgatory. And that is separate.
What stood out positively about your Bali trip?
Because I had no expectation for it. And it was never really on my list of places to go. And I just went because my friends invited me. And it was probably some of the like least stress I've ever had on a trip, obviously, up until whatever happened. Because it's so inexpensive that you didn't run into like the like penny pinching or having to like worry about, but like I really didn't have to worry about a budget or anything. Like, you felt like, I'm like, is this how rich people travel? Like, they can just buy whatever they want when they want to, and they don't have to think twice about what restaurant they're going to or anything. Like, I felt like a king there. I was getting massages every day. It was so beautiful. I felt so safe. The people were so kind, and the weather was literally 35 degrees and sunny and beautiful with not a cloud in the sky every single day. So Bali, for sure. It was the first like proper vacation, not trip, I had taken in so long, where it felt like I was properly relaxing.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. How about you?
For me, it was Boston. Went with Haley's parents.
I haven't been to Boston since I went on a work trip. I need to go back like for fun.
Yeah, we went in January, so it was like the first trip of the year. And like I said, off the top of this episode here, tried the Boston cream in Boston, which was fantastic. But then also, it was just like a city. We went for Haley's dad really loves the Boston Bruins, and there was this big game, and so we went for a hockey game. But we ended up doing so many different things, and it was like, but it was also a city that was never really on my like, oh, I got to go to this city list. But it's so nice when you have a trip that you're like pleasantly surprised by.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, it's actually cool that I explored this a little bit. Yeah. And then you get back and you're like, actually, I would probably recommend this to other people to go to. And a big one for me is like, if you get back from a trip and that place makes it back onto a list of locations you would return to, big for me. And Boston, I'm like, okay, I've gone in the winter now. I would love to go in the summer. Yeah.
I only went for work, and I stayed there for a few days, and I loved it. And I've always wanted to go back. I feel like I just, on weekend trips, take the opportunity to go to New York. But I feel like you could, Boston's the type of city, it's like a Chicago. You could like mix in that as a weekend trip instead.
100%. It's like the flight is like 10 minutes further or something like that. Maybe 20 minutes further than New York. It's super similar. I would recommend it for sure.
Maybe not right now because of the dollar state currently. It would cost you 40% more to go to any of those places at the moment. But yeah, it's I really like Boston. That's a good choice. And then what's your favorite thing that you did this year?
Okay, this is a perfect transition, Sarah, actually, because I wrote down a little bit of a sleeper, but it was an intentional thing I did on a monthly basis. We talk about how you and I are different because I'm the one who has a budget when it comes to the spreadsheet for monthly finances and whatnot. Something that I was a lot more intentional about this year was just making sure that I'm saving for rainy days, retirement, just, taking care of my investments, essentially.
I like that.
Which was like, it's not to say I'm becoming a big banker or anything like that. It was just like, let's sit down, let's actually be putting money into the accounts that need to be, fed a little bit every month, and then not listen, people can make a little bit of money on crypto if they want to, and like make weird bets on like funky crypto coins that you hear about, but like, I've done that in the past. You can also
just dump your money into a TFSA that's got a good return, and sometimes baby goes up to 18%. And you're like, woo!
Invest in a couple like safe index funds. Yeah. Invest often as you can, and that's kind of what I did this year. And listen, the returns were good for me, and not like an overly amazing way, but like in a way that isn't losing a ton of money on like some random cryptocurrency or something. So anyway, that was I was like, you know what, sitting down at the end of the year, proud of the steps that I took in that sense this year.
That's good.
What about you, Sarah? Something you did you're proud of that was good for you this year?
I think in general, because it can do like pie in the sky, like big picture, is that I really bet on myself this year. And like specifically in the end of the year, because we haven't talked about it on the podcast yet, but I left my full-time job in November. Yeah. Which has been like a long process in the making of making that decision. It's been ebbs and flows of like wanting to do it and not, and things happening obviously, but I finally did it.
Congrats, by the way.
Thanks. It does not mean I'm a full-time influencer, which I made very clear, but that world has given me the cradle to be able to do it, which is nice, like the little like safety net a little bit, but speaking of investments, all my good investments I've made, the safety net to be able to do it. But yeah, I still probably will like work with CBC, and like I feel like it's weird I can like say their CBC's name now because like I don't work there full time anymore. But I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, I'm young, I don't have kids, I don't have a mortgage. And I was craving just like the freedom of choice to do whatever I want. Maybe that's make a movie. Maybe that's do speaking engagements. Maybe that's, I don't know. I don't even know what it is yet. So it's weird because first time in my life, I don't really know what I'm going to do like in the new year and whatever. Like I have ideas. Like I'm a very, like I still had a full work day today. I like looked up from my computer. I was like, oh my God, like it's already like 4:00. But yeah, I don't know. It's like the first time in my life I'm letting myself just like trust in myself and trust in my abilities and just kind of see where the wind takes me.
That's a huge one.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it's also crazy because of like the state I was in this time last year, and also like watching back this year's like the video from this year. Like the video from last year when I was watching it before this, like no one here knew, like, well, you guys knew, but no one like on the camera knew that I was going through like a really tough like mental health time at that time. So it's really crazy to even think of like that girl couldn't have made that decision now. So then even just like in the past year, how quickly it went by, like this year went by so fast, but how much has changed to be able to be in the position to like be in a great mental like state to be able to make that move.
Yeah. Oh, what a fantastic way to refresh the year or start the year.
Yeah. And so on the other side, we're going to talk about all of our goals for 2025 because who knows what's going to happen. Okay, so we went back and rewatched, at least I did, our episode from last year and took some notes on the goals that we had set there, what we told the people we were going to do. So Jacob,
how did we do, Sarah?
Again, we kept it kind of broad. So like it wasn't too crazy. But there are some specifics on here. So let's go over them. First of all, your first one that you did that you really wanted to was you wanted to play more. And we were talking about like monetizing hobbies and how like it's so often like to monetize something that like we become good at or whatever it might be. But you said you wanted to play more. Do you think you did that?
No, I think I failed.
And that's okay.
I think I failed. I think I honestly ended up way busier than I thought I was going to be. You know what? That's a cop out.
Well, you finished building a cottage and trained for a marathon at the same time. That's crazy.
Yes, for sure. And I think that they both can exist at the same time. Both working hard and being disciplined for achieving certain goals, but then also being intentional about carving out space for play. And I think that I had the right mindset at the beginning of last year, but I definitely didn't do it. I'm trying to think of like not any time, but like a good amount of times that I actually did that. And if anything,
you actually had to play less because you couldn't play soccer, so you wouldn't get injured to.
I know.
Like, do your
I'm excited
marathon.
because the first time I'm on a soccer team, it starts tomorrow. I've played here and there a couple of times recently, but yeah, that was like 6.5, 7 months that I didn't actually do that.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so I'm a little disappointed in that one.
Well, I didn't do a week of sobriety every single.
Yeah, wait.
I was so.
You had a specific one.
I had a specific one. I was going to do 1 week sober, intentionally sober, every single.
Okay, wait. How did you do?
I think I did January.
Every other
maybe
week?
February. No, 1 month sober every month. So it adds up to 3 months.
Sober every month.
Sorry. 1 week sober.
Oh yeah.
Every month, so it adds up to 3 months.
Right. Okay. So
were there any other January, February?
Were there any other weeks where you didn't?
Okay. Well, yeah, throughout the year, but not that I not intentional. That's the whole point. Is
okay.
It was supposed to be
intentional. I gotcha.
And it definitely.
Okay, that's a good point actually, because me listing that one of my successes for drinking thing off the top of this episode was that I drank less alcohol, and specifically said I didn't do that intentionally. Maybe so
that was the whole thing, is like I was trying to be intentionally sober and just like, be a little bit more intentional about like choosing not to drink, and then I didn't.
How do you feel about it now then? That like
I do drink less though now than I did last year, so I don't really know.
Yeah. Do you?
I'm in a good spot right now.
Yeah.
I'm chilling.
That's great.
So I feel fine about it. I feel better than I think I did last year.
Yeah.
I also don't go to as many events anymore. And to be honest, that was a huge factor for me wanting to go 1 week sober, because like I was going to so many of those like PR events and all that stuff where it's all open bars and you feel obligated to drink.
Maybe that's a good thing, actually. Like speaking about, changing different things lifestyle wise that kind of have unintentional but maybe positive consequences, which is like maybe you don't want to go to some of these random PR events where there are open bars because like what are you doing there anyway?
Exactly. So
What's the benefit?
Exactly. So I stopped going to them, and then started drinking. Like the holidays were not as crazy for me, and I like did not drink as much during them because I wasn't going to those things. Truly.
Right.
I say as like after we finish this episode, I am going to one of those events tonight, but it's like the only one I'm going to. It's like the only Christmas themed event I'm going to. Jacob, your next one was like we're talking about products. Like you want to work more into like building standalone products and stuff, which I think can still be an evolving goal.
I think it's an evolving goal. I think it's like still something that's in the background for sure. If we take like our business together, which is for anyone who's listening to this podcast who doesn't know that I'm Sarah Jenkins' manager when it comes to social media.
Some people still don't know.
Well, I was gonna say when you said you left CBC and be like, wait, are you still gonna be working with Jacob, your manager at CBC?
I got asked that question. Once. I got one question about it. What about Jacob?
For the record, I do not work at the CBC. Wait, you mean when you left? Recently?
Yeah.
I thought you meant, oh my God. Okay. So maybe someone doesn't know that.
But now we can like dive into that stuff more.
Yeah, 100%. So like a large, if not the vast majority of what I do essentially on your behalf is like manage the brand partnerships side of things. And I think that we did quite a lot of brand partnerships this year.
We did.
It was a busy.
Well, my year isn't. My company's year isn't even done.
Well,
yet.
yeah, that's
I'm
true.
on April 1, so it could even still be more.
100%. And it probably once January rolls around, the holidays. December is always like a dead zone for everyone.
We did a lot though, and we did it in like actually when you think about it, short periods of time, because there was 2 full months in this year that I was gone.
Well, that's what I was thinking too. So if you don't count December and you don't count
3 months, and you don't count the Olympics, July, August, essentially both,
and then the Southeast Asia trip.
It's 3.5 months I was gone.
So a lot of time we're not there. So speaking of this goal specifically, this has always been something in the back of my head. We're like, okay, how can we develop standalone products? Which is like looking at a client who's say like a content creator who has a big, large, engaged audience who maybe would look at their personal brand and say, oh, I could see Sarah as someone who maybe has like a candle line or something. For example, I'm not saying we do that, but that's always been in the back of my head, and it's been something that like has kicked around a little bit.
And we've thought about it if it comes naturally. I honestly haven't, from my perspective, because we've talked about this for like over a year now. Well, maybe even 2 years. This has been a goal. We only publicly said it was a goal last year.
Well, exactly, because being intentional about it, I think, is important, because there are a ton of companies out there that we could email tomorrow and say like, hey, we want to do the Sarah Jenkins beach towel. Yeah. And like we could do that.
But it's like you want to do it well.
Why? And why?
Exactly. And why? Exactly. So I think it like develops. I think we'll have more time to make it something develop naturally.
Yeah.
And like the brain capacity for it.
And it doesn't really make sense for if you're in Paris for the Olympics for a month to be like launching some.
By the way, guys, I'm launching old school telephones, whatever it might be. Yeah.
I still think it's a really good business model, but it has to be done, like you say, very organically, and the why has to make sense, not just to you, but to everyone who might be buying something.
My next 3, I had an intentional hangout with friends. And I think that, so when I was talking about it on the thing, like on last year's episode, I was talking about intentional hangouts that aren't just like going to the bar. And that actually happened this year. My friend Regan started a book club. And so now I have an intentional, like once a month, where I see all these girls on like a night in, and we have our book club. We started doing the dinner, like where we just have dinners more. My friends and I go to PWHL, whatever it might be. A lot of our hangouts are more intentional in that capacity, where we're not just like, I really don't know the last time I went out to a bar just to go to a bar. Like truly, it might be a year ago. It's like friends' birthdays and stuff will sometimes go, but the last time we had just had a night where we're like, oh yeah, let's all go out. It doesn't happen. Like this year, 28 was the shift. Yeah. So that one, improv classes, that one I like baited myself because I already paid for the improv class when I was like, take an improv class, but I just signed up for improv 4.
Yeah, but you could also have taken improv and just as easily like said, I'm out.
But now, yeah, you're right. So I guess it's a check, because I've done up to improv 3. I was supposed to do improv 4 in November, but the class got canceled. So now I'm doing it in January.
Yeah.
And improv 4 is when you start doing shows. Ooh.
Wait, for live audiences,
Yeah.
right? Okay, we have to go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sell discount
The
tickets
discount
on this, or like bees,
on the
whatever,
side.
like underground
Be like
tickets.
StubHub on the side.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Improv was really good, and like I still love it.
What do you like most about it right now? Like, what is drawing you back to over?
That Improv 3 was the first one that anyone knew who I was from the internet. No one knew who I was, and I could be like whatever version of myself that I wanted to be, which felt so freeing. And it's talk about the play. It allowed me to play freely and like without my friends there, without like people who have a certain like, whether it's good or bad, like idea of who you are, or judgment of you. Like I was able just to like be my silly, goofy theater kid self at heart, which is great. So, and it's also like you're off your phone for 3 hours, and I'm just like learning a new skill, and it's like helping with speaking and all of these things. So it was great. I love it.
That.
And it helps my competitive edge come out a bit. Like improv's a little competitive, right? Because you're trying to get the laughs. So it's good.
Oh, that'd be fun with shows.
Another one for you though was working and finishing The Cottage.
It is, fingers crossed, as of tomorrow, be entirely done.
Okay, so by the time this episode comes out, it's done. Just say it's done. Jacob, it's done.
I don't want to do it because I keep jinxing it. But the last thing we have all our permits, everything is occupied, or our occupancy permits and everything like that is done. It's been done for a while. There's one other thing that we have to do, which is hooking up the generator essentially to the rest of the cottage. But yeah, let's say it's done.
It's done. It's done.
It was a project.
That's
my God.
Since the beginning of this podcast, we've been talking about it.
Yeah, and a little bit longer, from
like,
when we actually purchased the piece of land. It where are we now? It will be exactly 3 years.
Crazy.
Yeah, almost to the
Rome
day.
wasn't built in a day, people.
Yeah.
And Jacob's Cottage was built in 3 years.
Oh my God, yeah, what a learning experience. That was one of the, and most of it happened this year. So that's a good one for this year, because the vast majority of the actual
you were able to spend your first night there this year. You're having your first Christmas there this year, like all these things. That's
there are still like, and there's it's relatively big, especially compared to like a 750 square foot condo that I live in Toronto.
Yeah.
So it's fun to like design the rooms and like add to them as we kind of go up each and every time. But it's still fun. It's a little like, it's still a little, I get a little not nervous every time I go, but a little butterfly, because I'm just like, like what's gonna happen this time, or like what. It's also weird to like have a place where like I've never owned something, you know? So just like you go on the land, you're just like, well, like I own this rock, I guess.
You're like, yeah.
Not that I'm like super stoked on being possessive about the actual land part of it, but it's just fun to have a place. It's like a home base.
But also for you, like you love to design and stuff, it's a place that you get to design yourself. And you get to, because I know like 100%, it's like, it's different. It's yours. Like you get to, it's not like when you rent and like you have to get approval to like paint a wall.
I know my car right now, and when I go home, I'm going to load it up with, I have to finish like the closet stuff. There are a couple like small projects that are
That's
like, let's
gonna be
do
forever though.
Yeah,
there's
organization
always
stuff.
There's always going to be
and
little things.
100%. And then like, really fun stuff for cooking meals and that sort of stuff to fill the kitchen with all sorts of goodies. So that was the biggest one that definitely checked complete.
Yeah, my last goal that I had said was go to the Paris Olympics.
Huge, another huge accomplishment.
At that point, I knew I was going, but on the pod I literally said I wasn't doing anything because I just like, I don't know, like I joked with the layoffs last year, like until I was there and I landed in Paris, I was like, anything can happen. I can't like assume that I'm going.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did it. Went to the Olympics.
And I'd also say, I feel like for anyone who hasn't or like missed this episode, we did a whole episode that was a recap of the Olympics. So like in terms of best of Talking Fast episodes, I would say throwback, go re-listen or listen to that.
And it was fresh. I was like it was right after I got back. So it's like everything is fresh in my brain. Because honestly, I was speaking at an athlete summit on Sunday where I was like teaching athletes about social media and stuff, and I was talking to someone from Athletics Canada there, and we were like looking at photos of Paris, and I was like, that doesn't feel like this year, and she goes, I agree. It feels like it was so long ago.
I remember I asked you at the end of that episode, like, has it sunk in yet? How does it feel that you've accomplished this huge thing that was always a massive career goal for you? Do you have perspective on it now? Obviously a different perspective, but like, how does it feel now? It doesn't feel like it happened this year, but
it doesn't feel like it was this year. Yeah, like I gave myself the last day in Paris to reflect on that, and that's when I like cried about it and let myself like, I talked about this on that episode. I was listening to Long Live. I like was crying. I had like that moment of like clarity, being like, you've done it, like you did it. And it's not like I won a medal where you reach the mountaintop. It's a very physical thing. Like I was literally just like in a random park drinking a nice coffee, and that's when it hit me. So I allowed myself to have that moment. I've never really looked back since then. I really looked at it as like, I achieved that goal. And I've like now been living in a little bit of a limbo, but I know what my next career goal is, but it's just like going to take me a long time to get there. So I'm just not putting too much pressure on it. So I think that leads us well into our goals for 2025 then. Because like one of my goals for 2025 One of my goals for 2025 is growing my business and like my next stage of my career. But like it took me 10 years to get to the Olympics. And that was like my big goal. Like what clarity it gave me is like how it does take a while for things. Like you just said, it takes 3 years to build your college, like whatever. So I'm not like pressuring myself to be like, I need to like reach another goal by this time or like need to do this next big thing. Like I'm actually going into like this next chapter of my career very like calmly and confidently, just like allowing myself to like forge my own path a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I feel the same way because like one of the biggest things I learned this year was similar in that like a disciplined approach to achieving your goals is what really helps you get there. Exactly. One of them case being like the marathon, for example. College is an obvious one for what reasons you just said, but the marathon, for example, I didn't reach the exact goal that I wanted to time-wise. I still got a PR by 8 minutes, which is a big chunk of time. I'm proud of that. But at the same time, do I have bigger goals that I want to get better times? Yes. Is that something that you can just get tomorrow?
No.
Definitely not. But like, especially with this race or that race that I was training for, it's like I was very disciplined in the training for that one, making sacrifices that we talked about earlier in the episode, but then also, staying consistent with your plan and understanding where you're headed, which is like the same as we're talking about leading into 2025, chipping away at things, even if you have big lofty goals that are going to take maybe months, maybe years before you get there.
And just starting them slow. You got to like start rolling the rock slowly before it goes.
They're also like, I definitely had a big, I don't know what, if it was like one thing that changed this year, but it was like a perspective shift of like having to choose what you want to kind of go toward, because sometimes the paths, like, when you're a kid and you're like, oh, I have all these huge dreams and I definitely can achieve them. And then you're like, okay, you get a little bit older and you're like, you have to pick and choose a few
of what you want to do.
Especially if a goal is so big that it's going to take 10 years to do. It's like, you probably maybe can't do something else that's also going to take 10 years.
When you're a kid, you don't know how to make those things happen, and you just think you can do everything.
And for a while, even up until like recently, I would maybe even get upset at someone who would say, oh, well, like, you have to like do one or the other. And it's not to say like you have any limitation on the choices that you make, but like certain things take a long time and also a lot of effort.
But there is just still choices. Like, everything is a choice. So it's like, what do you put your effort into?
So me getting more comfortable with that anyway was a goal. That's a goal for me.
You talked about discipline. A goal next year for me is to run a marathon.
Okay, this is a big one. Yeah, I know. I saw someone call you out too, because you're just like, little goals for 2025 on your Instagram story. And someone was like, a marathon. Sarah, hello.
I got so many replies of people going, no, but this makes sense because to you that would be a little goal.
No, but that's a good point, because that's like stepping up.
I don't mean it's a little goal. I just mean it's like, it's like, I think when I think big goals, I think like millionaire movie producer. Like, that's my goal.
Yes, this is the thing. You can accomplish a marathon in 16 weeks.
I can
easily.
do it this year. Like, that's what I'm saying, little goals. It's a goal for the next year that I know I can achieve next year. So I didn't know if I actually wanted to do it. But then even just you talking there, like, in this new chapter of like creating routine for myself and being my own boss and like whatever, but I think like marathon training goes hand in hand with like me trying to be disciplined and creating like routines for myself and like proving that I can do things for myself. I actually think doing a marathon this year really will help me understand how to also be like a business owner and work for myself too. I think the skill sets, like, I think they will help each other.
In better words, that's what I was saying. Yes.
So I think like it's very intentional that I'm doing it this year. I also really want to do it before I turn 30. Like, I don't know, it's just like a thing I've wanted to do. And so I don't turn 30 this year, but it's in my 29th year. So sign up for the Chicago lottery.
We will already know when this is coming out.
And if I did, this is my thing. I know myself. If I don't get in, I'm probably gonna be like, well, I'll do the donation and I'll just go run it. Like, that's the marathon I want to run.
Okay, yeah.
because I don't think I can do New York first. But then again, I'm also like, if it's my first marathon, then like maybe I just do it. Is it going to kill my confidence?
I wouldn't. Yeah.
Okay. So you heard it here first. I guess I'm going to do Chicago.
I would save it because if
I don't want to do Toronto. That's my one caveat.
Toronto sucks because especially if you get in the pain cave of Toronto, you have a lot of friends, but like you can't have friends every 100 meters, and you need them sometimes.
I know.
Toronto's fun. I would if I don't get into Chicago, I might do Toronto again as like a comeback race to try to do it like a lot faster than I did last time.
I think I really have to see how I do in the first half of the year with like half marathons and stuff before I decide if I would do Toronto or not.
Well, you got a bunch of races lined up as well.
Yeah, I have a bunch. Oh, well, because I knew if I'm going to be doing, I have like 6 races I've signed up for.
Well, that was one thing I mean, we haven't really talked about that in detail, but I think in 2025, or 2024, we should say like goals that not necessarily goals, but things that we did. Talking Fast related. We did the Run Club, which was like actually really so cool.
It was cool. And I think we'll do it even more this year, especially with like marathon training and just like being more intentional. But I was gone for months at a time this year. So it was like not factor, but now we know to do it. We had like our Run Club like placed at like fifth at like as a group at a race. Like there was things like that are really cool. So yeah, I think Run Club growing even more is a cool thing that we did this year. Like I feel like a few years ago we did a lot of like drinking based events, you know what I mean? Because we did like whatever bar nights and stuff, and then the next year we did like this past year we did like run clubs and stuff, which was really cool.
You know what I think we can combine them in a certain way, because one thing that we've always wanted to do is like tie live music in some way. So if we were to do like a run club to an outdoor like coffee shop kind of thing, then do a stage, someone comes and plays some music.
Yeah, that type of thing is cool. I think like we'll merge the two, but I think more events will definitely come for Talking Fast in the new year. What are some other goals that you have? What's another one?
Ooh, you know what? I do want to revisit the Play More thing, because I was thinking about that this whole episode after we said that, and I'm like, I'm actually really disappointed that I didn't do that. So that one's gonna have to be re-added.
I always have goals. I do a vision board every year, and I always have.
I started my vision board. You want to look?
You did, yeah. I always take things from, but I always take things like there are things that I've literally had on my vision board since like 2017, since I started doing them, that I haven't done yet. So like I still put everything on every year, because you never know when you're gonna hit it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Running is a big one. I have a photo of Warren Buffett for investments. This is like a random one, but I want a nice black tailored suit.
Love that. I think every person should have a nice black tailored suit.
I know I don't have one right now, and I need one.
One of my other goal I have is I want to perform in a show of some kind. Not like my improv like end of semester show. Like I want to perform in a show again.
What kind of show?
I don't know.
Like would we get like a Sarah Jenkins like acoustic set?
Or
like you want to be like in
no, I don't know. It's broad. Maybe
I like that.
Maybe I do an open mic. That's been on my list for the past few years. I haven't done it. Maybe I do an improv show. Like I get part of the thing. Yeah. Maybe I don't know what that means, but I do really love performing, and I have been doing a lot of like theater lately, and it's like scratch that itch again. So I looked up community theater the other day. I was like, what if I just pop up in a random community theater show? Like, that'd
there's
be
so many.
Fun.
That'd be awesome.
That's another one. So we'll see.
One other one that I have, I like was good at this at the beginning of last year, but I want to get more into it. Everyone knows I love chairs. But one of the biggest like accomplishments I think that I had this entire year was this one chair that I refinished. Speaking of like discipline and respecting the process, it was hard to do and figure out how to do it, and like get the strip off all the varnish and all that stuff. And like working with another maker who's like a leather artist who like did all the seat really stuff. Nice I'm so pleased with how it turned out, and that was something so far outside of what I do for business that it was like a really refreshing thing. So I want to do that kind of thing more. Maybe that is play. Is that not play? Maybe that's play. That's play. Yeah.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
One of the other ones, last one I want to say, which maybe is a good way to end this too, is that we talked to so many cool people this year as well. I think we had a good slate of guests on Talking Fast. I agree.
I think this year represented to me what we wanted this show to be, with a wide range, because we have everything from artists to actors to improvisers.
We had a bunch of musicians.
We have chefs. We have small business owners. We had a really wide, we had like people that are on the Forbes 30 under 30 list. Like we had a wide range of people, and I think it really represented the type of show that we want to be, which is just a talk show that talks to really cool people that
and I would say like if you haven't listened to an episode because a guest hasn't stood out to you, I feel like maybe go revisit a couple of those randomly, because there's some good conversations in there that
Like if you don't recognize the name, I think it's actually even more the reason to listen because you'll
I
learn
agree.
something.
I agree. So like goals for this coming year, I would say let's get a lot more interesting people on. So like if you have any
Let's
suggestions.
get a Real Housewife on.
Yeah, okay.
That's my goal. Jacob wants to sit here and be like, what is happening? Yeah, and also let us know like what you guys want to see more of in 2025. 2025 doesn't even sound like a real year to me. Like that sounds made up, but we're going to do it. But as always, thank you for listening. We can't wait to continue into 2025 with you. We're going into year 3, celebrating our birthday very soon. And yeah, we're still here.
Thanks for listening.
I've been Sarah. That's been Jacob. And we can't wait to take on the new year with you. We'll be here every single Wednesday. See you next time. Bye.